Welcome, everyone, to the Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. My name is Denise, and I am one of the 6 Dharma leaders here at IMCC. And that was a 29-minute meditation, because even the old-time technology is not correct up there. So maybe one day we can have our Zoomers here by hologram. Would that be fun? Cool. Very good. Okay. So tonight, well, actually, why don't we just take a moment to just wave to each other and say hello, and if you guys can wave to everyone and welcome. This is our community that practices together to try to find some peace and harmony and scoot away that suffering. Good. So for tonight's talk, the title is Dharma-Informed Questions to Help Find Helpful Answers. So last week, Thea had given us a talk on our relationship to time and encouraging and reminding us the importance of well-formed questions. Good formulated questions help to guide our decision-making, hopefully leading to favorable outcomes and actions and creating more harmony. Tonight, I want to explore how the Buddha's teachings, what's called the Dharma in the Pali language, can help us to formulate good questions and yield good answers to bring us more clarity, more peace, and less suffering. As you all know, rarely are the answers in life black and white. Though many of our institutions design rules and regulations that are black and white, dualistic, right or wrong, good or evil, in an effort to guide our behavior. Maybe control a little bit, maybe. We yearn for decisive answers. We hope for certainty and reduced worry. We are looking, perhaps even, to be right. But life is not black and white, but many shades of gray. We have shades of gray in life because our circumstances are always changing. Nothing stays the same. Impermanence, anicca. What may be helpful in one situation might not be helpful in another. So it would be wise for each of us to consider how we can become skilled to stay awake, to survey our current circumstances, watching our thoughts, and choosing our actions mindfully. We have a responsibility to navigate that gray and to do the best we can with our decisions to affect ourselves positively, but also affect others positively. This takes effort and skill and a willingness to navigate that gray. We can begin by practicing with our investigative skills and a commitment to self-honesty. It's worth the effort because this work will yield peace that we have done the best we can in any particular situation, given the resources we have at that moment. When we're trying to go about amidst life's uncertainties, we often want to cling to having things a certain way. Perhaps I didn't say that correctly, because we don't really want to cling. We are clinging to wanting things to be a certain way. If we knew how much that could cause suffering, we wouldn't want to cling. Okay. The bad news is, though, with that clinging, it brings suffering. The good news is the Buddha taught us how to release that clinging, and it's through the Eightfold Path. Briefly, the Eightfold Path invites us to check in to see if we are grounded in right view. Are we seeing the reality of causes and effects? Do we know right intention? Are we operating from goodwill? What are our motivations? Right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort. Are we choosing wholesome actions? Right mindfulness and right concentration to help us focus. These 8 factors are not linear, they're not sequential, but more deeply interconnected like an interwoven path or fabric. Finding our way requires investigation of all this intermingling factors. Recently, I was listening to a Dan Harris podcast, 10% Happier, and he mentioned a tweet. I don't know if it's still called a tweet, but it was on X. And he made the comment, is it now called an X? Who knows? Anyways, it was Roshi Joan Halifax, who is a Zen Buddhist teacher. And apparently she had on this tweet a set of squiggly lines. And the way he described it, this is what I imagined it to look like. Okay, everybody. Okay. And she said, this is the path, a moving line. Okay. So perhaps life is like this. Okay. And we want to get to the path to help us at least navigate. I've also heard the path described as that interwoven fabric that I was mentioning. So perhaps it's a little bit more like a Celtic knot, that they all need to come together in some fashion to help us to navigate more wisely. Intersecting. Now, this is a story that was told by the revered Theravadan Buddhist monk, Ajahn Chah. A Western monk became frustrated by the difficulties of the practice and the detailed and seemingly arbitrary rules of conduct that the monks had to follow. He began to criticize the other monks for sloppy practice and to doubt the wisdom of Ajahn Chah's teaching. At one point, he went to Ajahn Chah and he complained, noting that even Ajahn Chah himself was inconsistent and seemed to often contradict himself in an unenlightened way. Yeah, Ajahn Chah is pretty up there on the chain, so that took a little chutzpah. Okay. So Ajahn Chah just laughed and pointed out how much the monk was suffering by trying to judge the others around him. Then he explained that his way of teaching is very simple. It is as though people are walking down a road I know well. But to them, the way may be unclear. I look up and I see someone about to fall in a ditch to the right side of the road. So I call out to him, go left, go left. Similarly, if I see another person about to fall in a ditch to the left, I yell, go right, go right. It's a moving line. So how do questions help us to figure out what is best in the circumstances that keep changing? Questions help us to identify what we are looking for and what is important to us. They give us data about our current conditions. We can look at our external environment. Where are we? Who are the people we are interacting with? Where do we see a problem? And we can look internally. What am I feeling? What are the reactions happening in my body? And look at how our history is contributing to our reactions and our beliefs. Are we aware of what our inner roommate is telling us? In the book, The Untethered Soul, which many of you may have read, okay, Michael Singer talks about having an inner roommate who sits on the couch with us and talks incessantly and is all over the place, assisting us in grinding out our concerns. Personally, I get a kick out of this idea of imagining my inner roommate on a couch. I imagine it in a snow globe with it being shook up all over the place. This roommate is going on and on like someone close to me whom I can't get a word in edgewise. Why did they do this? What do we do now? You should do this. Oh, you could say that. Oh no, that would be crossing a line. That won't work. That would not be acceptable if Buddha, God, or the elf on the shelf was watching. What if I don't do this or that? Why did this happen to me? You know what would be really good right now? A cup of tea and a piece of cake, and that's what I'm going to do. Does anyone else here have an inner roommate? There we go. A few years ago in a podcast, on Oprah's podcast, she had a woman, and I'm sorry, I don't know the woman's name and I couldn't find it, who taught it would be wise for us to ask 4 questions and be honest with ourselves without judgment. 1, is this thought true? 2, how do I know this is true? 3, is this 100% true? And 4, if it's true, can I accept this reality? Well, this sounded to me like what the Buddha taught. Ehipasiko, come and see for yourself. Note what is true. And know that fighting reality causes suffering. Last week, when Thea was giving her Dharma talk, she encouraged us to stop and note, what is my perception? What is my understanding of my perception? Is this 100% true? What do I need in this moment that is causing me a resistance to my reality? What am I clinging to or craving? What do I think is not enough? As Thea said, what is it do we truly want to know? The Buddha is said to have asked himself many questions on his path to enlightenment and encouraged his students to do the same. Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who's another Theravadan teacher, Buddhist monk, wrote, the Buddha asked, what is the most skillful use of this knowledge? That is the question he kept using to direct his practice. And he questioned himself, what is this? What is the cause of this? What is the best use of this? Thanissaro Bhikkhu teaches us that the important function of a question is it shows that there's a gap, there's something missing. True happiness and the knowledge of how to find true happiness. He said, you can think of a question as a tool or an instrument with this missing part. And if you're using the wrong tool, no matter how many wise people tell you which part you're missing, it still won't solve the problem. So you really haven't benefited. For example, if I want to know how to achieve lasting peace, but I am missing the desire to wake up to my reality, I'm not going to be able to find that lasting peace. Now, if I instead am using the wrong tool and I'm thinking, okay, some sleep might help here, or some chocolate, or some alcohol to numb so I can soothe myself and find that peace, okay? But it won't last. And I can listen to as many Dharma talks about the path and how to achieve peace until the cows come home. But if I don't apply this to my reality, it's not going to work. Perhaps a better question would be, can I be in the circumstances I am in right now without needing this to be different? That is equanimity. Thereby, I would stop fighting my reality so I can know as much peace as possible in this moment. The Buddha also encouraged us, when we go to see a teacher of the Dharma, of the path, be sure we check this person out and make sure they're not telling us falsehoods or guiding us out of their own greed, hatred, or delusion, no matter how good they look on paper. Look at that person's behavior. When you feel confident that this is the sort of person you can trust, then you can listen to that person's Dharma. He says one of the first questions you should ask your teacher is, what is skillful and what is not skillful or unskillful? When you've learned from that teacher, you can go off and practice on your own. but don't forget to keep asking those questions. Don't just stop with the definition of skillful and unskillful. Look at your own behavior. So I've always had the question, well, where do we draw the line? Where are our lines when something has bothered us or we feel wronged? Where do we go? When do I act? When do I not act? And I asked our trusted teacher, Ward, our Dharma teacher here, and he shared some helpful questions to guide my behavior. He said, are my motivations based on preference? Are they based on principle? Are they based in ethics? If it's the latter, act on it. So I got my preferences because, it's my preferences, not everyone else's. The principles, I thought we were supposed to have those. Except for we can have very different principles, and maybe mine are in a faulty belief. So there is a book, Denise is the author, called Selves and Not Selves. And in this book, it was a very helpful book, but I came up with a quadrant of questions. And I have some handouts here if anyone perhaps thinks this might be useful. But anyways, it's set up in quadrants, 4 questions, okay? And it says, what, when I do it, leads to the long-term happiness of myself and others? So that's a thumbs up if you find that. What, when I don't do it, leads to the long-term happiness of myself and others? Well, that's another thumbs up. That's good. What, when I do it, does not lead to the long-term happiness of myself and others? That's And what, when I do not do it, does not lead to the long-term happiness of myself and others? Also a thumbs down, especially from any grammar teachers. They're wondering why I used a double negative. But it worked for me. So I'd like to apply this example to that quadrant of questions. I'd like to set the scene, and I admit my vice of impatience. I recently had a bit of road rage on my way to meet my KM group for Christmas lunch. I hope you haven't heard the story already. Might have gotten around. Okay, anyways, KM means Kalyana Mita, spiritual friends, and it's a group that gets together and we meditate and study the Dharma together. Now, Siri, who never gets anything right that I say, captured my instructions to the driver in front of me with perfect detail and texted it to my KM group. So if I apply these questions to this situation, it would guide my future behavior. So what, when I do it, is beneficial for myself and others? When I am patient on the road and I do not cause mind or bodily harm to myself or others, that's a thumbs up. What, when I don't do it, is helpful? When I don't yell colorful instructions to other drivers, the commute becomes more peaceful for everyone. What, when I do it, is not beneficial or helpful? Well, when I am expressing my aggravation at other drivers without my right speech filter, I'm not contributing to harmony of other drivers or to anybody receiving my text. And 4, what, when I don't do it, is not helpful? And when I'm not patient on the road, I am a source of agitation and danger to myself and others. Yeah. The text was really funny, really. It was. Okay. Okay. Our questions help us to decide the best answer, a way to respond skillfully in word and deed. So as far as some questions that the Buddha had taught us on the right speech, he asks us, is this true? Is it kind? Is it necessary for me to say this? Is it timely? And does it need to be said by me? Some questions for choosing right action or effort. Is this suffering, and will this cause suffering? Is this beneficial in the long term? Wise intention. Is this of goodwill, or is it rooted in greed, hatred, and delusion? So Thanissaro Bhikkhu has also another writing where he talked about the story where the Buddha taught his son Rahula how to check our behavior, check our motivation, check the actual results we get from our actions. If you see anything harmful coming from them, you've got to go back and learn how to act in another way, how to speak in another way, how to think in another way, both through your own observation and by getting advice from other people on the path. I love this line that a friend shared. So instead of beating myself over what I should have done, it's to say to myself, next time I will. Now, the Buddha purposely left some questions unanswered. Those are questions as, is the cosmos eternal or not eternal? Is it finite or infinite? Is the body the same as the soul, or is the body one thing and the soul another? Does the Tathagata, meaning the enlightened one who will not be reborn again, exist after death? Does he not exist after death? Both or neither? And he says, these are the reasons why you would not take any position on these questions, because it's accompanied by suffering, distress, despair, and fever. It does not lead to dispassion, to cessation, to calm, direct knowledge, full awakening, or unbinding. So, in summary, some Dharma-informed questions can help us find beneficial answers. Ask, is this causing suffering? Check in with your body and mind. If the answer is yes, abandon the behavior. Is this skillful? If not, abandon it. And ask, is this beneficial for the long-term well-being of myself and others? And if not, abandon it.